Imagine a kingdom that lasted so long. The first pharaohs were ancient history even to Cleopatra. They built massive stone mountains without modern engines and treated cats like literal gods. This is the wildest 3,000-year ride in human history. But how did a civilization in the middle of a burning desert become the most powerful place on Earth for 30 centuries? Welcome to History Bites, where we take the wildest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping moments in history and explain them fast. If you love the kind of history that sounds impossible but actually happened, subscribe. To understand ancient Egypt, you have to look at a map. Imagine living in a city where everything outside your front door is a scorching, yellow wasteland of sand. There is no rain, there are no forests. There is only one thing that keeps you alive, a massive, winding ribbon of blue water called the Nile. This river is like the world's longest charging cable. Without it, Egypt is a dead battery. Every year, the Nile floods its banks, leaving behind thick black mud that acts like a superpowered fertilizer. This allows the Egyptians to grow enough food to feed an empire while everyone else in the world is still struggling to find lunch. Because they have so much food and so much free time, they start thinking big, really big. There is a secret about how they used that time to move massive stones that most people get wrong. I will get to that in a moment. Let's go back 4,500 years. This is nearly 5 millennia before your great-great-grandparents were born. The Egyptians decide to build the Great Pyramid of Giza for Pharaoh Khufu. It contains 2.3 million stone blocks. Some of those blocks weigh 80 tons. That is the same weight as 2 fully loaded school buses stacked on top of each other. Here is the part nobody puts in textbooks. The Egyptians do all of this without using wheels, iron tools, or horses. They have copper chisels that are softer than the stone they are cutting. It is like trying to carve a steak using a plastic spoon. Most people think thousands of tired slaves built these pyramids under a whip. That is actually a myth. Modern archaeologists found the ruins of the builders' town, and it turns out these workers are highly skilled professionals. They eat prime beef, get medical care, and are proud of their work. Imagine your entire city coming together for 20 years to build the world's tallest skyscraper using nothing but ropes, ramps, and pure grit. They align the pyramids to the stars with more accuracy than a modern compass. And the craziest thing, it actually worked. The Great Pyramid remains the tallest building on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. But why build them at all? To understand that, you have to understand the pharaohs. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh is not just a boss or a king. They are a living god. Imagine if your principal at school didn't just give you detention, but also claimed they could make the sun rise and the river flood. People don't just follow the pharaoh because they have to. They follow because they believe the pharaoh keeps the entire universe from falling apart. One pharaoh, Ramesses II, rules for 66 years and has over 100 children. He builds statues of himself so big that his toes are larger than a grown man. And here is where it gets really wild. The Egyptians are obsessed with what happens after you die. They don't see death as the end. They see it as a very long, very dangerous road trip to a place called the Field of Reeds, which is basically a perfect version of Egypt. But there is a catch. To get there, you need your body. If your body rots away, your soul gets lost. This leads to the most famous and most disgusting science project in history, mummification. Most people don't know this part. To make a mummy, the priests have to remove everything that might rot. They start with the brain. They don't cut the head open. Instead, they take a long bronze hook, shove it up the nose, and whisk the brain into a liquid so they can pour it out. Stop and think about that for a second. They throw the brain away because they think it is just a useless organ for producing snot. They believe you do all your thinking and feeling with your heart. Next, they take out the stomach, the lungs, and the liver. They put these into 4 special jars, but the body is still full of moisture. To fix this, they bury the person in a massive pile of a special salt called natron. It is basically like making human beef jerky. After 40 days, the body is dried out, leathery, and ready to be wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen. They tuck magical charms called amulets into the bandages to act like spiritual GPS trackers and shield generators for the afterlife. Now this is where history gets genuinely strange. Once the mummy is tucked into its tomb, the journey really begins. The Egyptians believe the soul has to pass through a literal underworld filled with lake monsters and fire-breathing snakes. The final test is the weighing of the heart. The god Anubis takes your heart and puts it on a scale against a single feather. If your heart is heavy with bad deeds, a monster named Amit, who is part lion, part hippo, and part crocodile, eats your soul. If you are a good person, your heart is lighter than the feather, and you live forever. There is one part of this story that historians still argue about even today, the disappearance of the great library of Alexandria and the secrets of the hieroglyphs. For over 1,000 years, no one on Earth can read Egyptian writing. It looks like a bunch of cool emojis, birds, snakes, and eyes. People think they are just magic symbols. But in 1799, soldiers find a stone called the Rosetta Stone. It has the same message written in 3 different languages. Suddenly, the silent statues start to speak. We realize the Egyptians aren't just mysterious tomb builders. They are poets, doctors who perform brain surgery, and architects who understand complex math. The big reveal about ancient Egypt isn't just the gold or the mummies. It is the sheer scale of time. We often group all of ancient Egypt together, but the time between the first pyramid and the last pharaoh is longer than the time between the last pharaoh and today. When the famous Queen Cleopatra is alive, the Great Pyramid is already 2,500 years old. She is closer to the invention of the iPhone than she is to the people who built the pyramids. They created a culture so stable and so powerful that it barely changed for 30 centuries. This matters today because the Egyptians are the ones who gave us the 12-month calendar. They are the reason we divide our days into 24 hours. They invented paper, pens, and even breath mints. Every time you look at the time or write a note, you are using technology perfected in the desert thousands of years ago. History is full of moments that sound impossible, but every single one of them actually happened. That's what makes it better than fiction. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. We post every week, and every video will teach you something your history teacher hasn't mentioned yet. And drop your answer in the comments. If you were a pharaoh and could take only one modern object into your tomb for the afterlife, what would it be? The Egyptians didn't just build tombs. They built a legacy that refused to be forgotten.